The Proclamation of London by Francis Parker Yockey. Section 2. The Chaos of the Present. A. The Undermining of the Nations. Number 1. Class War. In its first phase, the great revolution of nationalism and materialism turned itself against the two poles of the cultural life, the forces of authority in the spiritual life and the political social life. Encyclopedism, Jacobinism, Freemasonry, and Republicanism are some of its early forms. They fought all signs of rank, and against anything which had grown organically throughout the centuries. The spirit of this revolt permeated the ruling strata in some countries, particularly in France, and it was this weakness above that made the revolution and the terror of 1793 possible. The canaille never breaks loose until the ruling elements permit it. This was equally true in 1789 as in 1944, with the American conquest of Europe. The worship of reason applied to state and society developed the test of quantity as the sole measure of legitimacy, not rank, talent, genius, or ability, but number alone mattered to the materialists. The source of power, according to the doctrinaire Democrats, was in the broadest, most undifferentiated mass of the population, and not in the spiritually differentiated strata born with the mission of accomplishing the life task of the nation, and actualizing the national idea. Blindly, the democratic ideologues continued with their work of leveling and destroying. In the century 1850-1950, they actually succeeded in undermining the state and society. What succeeded the old order? Nothing that the Democrats of the early period had sought. The new center of gravity of life was in economics, and the dominating economic rivalry was between the industrial capitalist and the financier. All the idealism and all the sacrifice of the equalitarians had only succeeded in wiping out an organic aristocracy and substituting for it a sordid and vulgar plutocracy. Within all the countries there now began the next form of class war, the war between economic groups instead of between social groups. The differences engendered by quality and tradition had been undermined, and the economic materialism now supplied the cadre of forms of the struggle. By speculation and manipulations on the exchange, the finance capitalist attacked the productive forms of property so that they might all be working for him, the unseen and unknown master, controlling the economic life of continents through his universal network of debts and interest. The exigencies of the struggle forced the industrialists to squeeze every possible source of profit tighter, and thus to increase the already cruel oppression of the laborers and their families. The ruling code of honor was now that of the cutthroat, and the economic life of the nations was a vile scramble for profit. Into this scramble there now entered new contestants. First was the proletariat, which now allied itself with the finance capitalist in the attack on the industrialist from above and below. The proletarian conscript was fitted out by his self-chosen non-proletarian leaders with a doctrine, organization, and tactics. The doctrine was that the entire history of the world was nothing but a continual class struggle, with money as its sole end and aim. The fact that this repulsive and grotesque outlook could even be formulated is itself the only commentary necessary on the kind of world liberalism creates. The organization form was the trade union, and the tactic was the strike. All three, the doctrine, the organization, and the tactic, are purely economic, purely materialistic and capitalistic. Although they proclaimed themselves against capitalism, they thought in its cadre, shared its aim, and fought with its weapons. Instead of manipulating the supply of goods, like the industrialist, or the supply of money, like the finance capitalist, they manipulated the supply of labor. The labor leader now became the third member of the snarling capitalist trinity.